we have been paying too much attention to physical diseases. And we have wonderful doctors, excluding me, that can cure all of these kind of physical diseases. But we never pay attention about social diseases, the social mentality of being poor. And we have great experts in this, always working on this social disease of the mentality of being poor. That is totally wrong. And it is so widespread that it became total normal. But we have a guest here, an expert to treat this disease. He trained most millionaires in our profession, and he made multi-million dollars personally. He likes muscle cars, he has big dreams, and he put cheese on everything. So he's American. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Istanbul welcome to Randy Gage!
Istanbul. Let's talk about the power of belief. But before we talk about the power of belief, I want to take you back 38 years ago, before I knew the power of belief, the power of hope, the power of having a dream. I was 15 years old and facing what I thought was an insurmountable challenge. I had spent a bunch of money that I shouldn't have spent. They were going to take that money from someone else who wasn't responsible. It was a family, it was a father with a couple children, 3 kids actually. And he would be responsible for my mistake. And I didn't want that to happen. And I thought the world was very unfair because I had been poor my whole life. To that point, my mother was raising 3 children by herself. She was knocking on doors as an Avon lady, selling cosmetics to raise her kids. So we had always been poor, and I hated being poor. You know, it's funny, I see people on television sometimes, and they're interviewing famous people, and they say, "Oh, we were poor, but we never knew it." And I always watch those things, and I say, really? Because I knew that I was poor, and I hated being poor. So I thought the world was very unfair, that there were other people that had money and I didn't have money and my family didn't have money. So things started to culminate. The pressure began to build. The money was due. It was going to be a Friday. I needed to have this money to protect this guy who didn't have it. So I got a knife that was about this long, and I went into a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and I held them up and stole all the money from their cash register. I was 15 years old, think about that. So I got away, escaped, and then I thought about other places and paid this money that I needed to pay, but I didn't have any left. And I didn't think that was fair. Again, because there were other people. There were these rich people who had so much money, and I didn't have it. And I didn't think that was right. So I started burglarizing businesses to steal money from them, and other businesses, and other businesses. And then it culminated one night, 3:30 in the morning, when I went into a convenience store at, it was an all-night 7-Eleven kind of convenience store, and I robbed them. So I ran back, and I had a car hidden behind the business, a couple blocks away. And I got in the car, and I put everything in the trunk, the money, and I had the ski mask and the jacket I'd been wearing. I put all that in the trunk, and I waited on the floor of the car. I thought, I'll wait 15 minutes. The police will go to that store, they'll get the report, and then they'll drive away. That was my plan. And then because I had to drive right by that store on the way back to go where I lived. So I'm sitting on the floor of this car, and my heart, imagine, if think back to when you were 15 years old, if you had done something like this, how fast your heart must be pumping. So I think I've waited 15 minutes, but I probably waited a minute. But I'm so excited, probably my sense of time is so off. So I get in the car and I drive back, and I drive right by the convenience store that I have just held up. And there's no police there. So I think, great, the plan worked, they've already been there, and now they've left and gone away. So I drive, and just as I'm coming to a corner, there's a police car coming the other way. And I try to look very casual as I drive by him, and he goes by the other way. And obviously, I didn't look casual enough, because he immediately turned around and, had the siren and the lights going to pull me over. So he asked for my driver's license. Well, that was a problem, because I didn't have a driver's license. Because you have to be 16 years old to get a driver's license. I was only 15. I said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot it at home. He said, okay, could I see the registration for the car? Well, that was kind of a problem, because, of course, it wasn't my car. And the person who owned the car didn't know that I had their car. So he says, can I see in the trunk? And I'm a smart guy, I've watched lots of TV, so I say, well, do you have a search warrant? So of course he knows that I'm the guy. So he gets me out of the car, handcuffs me, arrests me, takes me down. And then of course they search the car, and they find the money and all of the ski mask and all of this stuff. So I'm sitting in jail at 3:30 in the morning. And it was a cell, and I'm all by myself, and there's a big metal door, and there was a little square window with the glass that has the wire in it so it doesn't break. And I remember sitting in that jail cell looking out at that. There was a clock in the hallway on the other side of that window. And I just sat there watching that clock, minute after minute, hour after hour. And then day after day. And that's where you understand what it's like to have no belief. Because to have belief, you need belief in a better future. You have to have a vision of something more. Doing more, having more, but most importantly, becoming more. And when you have no belief, you have no hope. And when you have no hope, it's a dark, dark hour. So I sat in that jail cell day after day after day. And then one day there was some keys jangling and the door opened. And a man I didn't know walked in to visit me in this jail cell. His name was Baxter Richardson. He was a school teacher, and he was the parent of a girl that I had gone to school with, my best friend's girlfriend. He was her father. He came in to see me in that jail cell, and he told me, "Randy, you don't belong here. You're capable of great things." Well, I thought this guy was crazy. I thought, he doesn't know who he's talking to. Does he understand this is me? I was a teenage alcoholic. I was a teenage drug addict. I had made so many poor choices in my life. I couldn't understand why this guy was so confused to think I was capable of great things. But he believed that. He believed in me. Told me, "No, I talked to my daughter about you. I talked to your friends about you. I got all of your records from school. Sometimes you skip school for 15 days in a row, and then you go and show up the next day and take a test, and you score at the college level, advanced college level for reading comprehension. You're a smart guy. You're capable of great things. You don't belong in this jail cell." Well, I so desperately wanted to believe him that I believed him. I honestly borrowed his belief in me because I didn't have that belief in myself. But I borrowed his belief in me. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. The power of belief. What that can mean for you. I don't think I ever got as many excited messages about an event from people who were going to be there as I got from this one today. So many of you sent me tweets on Twitter. So many of you posted on Facebook. So many of you welcomed me into the city and sent me these notes. And this has been going on for months. Many of you have been counting down the days and putting on, "Randy, we love you. We can't wait for Istanbul. Only 17 more days. Only 5 more days. Only 1 more day. Only 3 more hours." Thousands of messages that I've gotten from you guys. That's the power of belief. That's the power of the belief you have in your dreams. It's the power of the belief that these people up here in the VIP section have in you. That maybe you don't even have for yourself, but they, the leaders, have for you. Belief is such an extraordinary thing. And it's such a critical element in the profession that you are in. Hope and belief. And those two things are two very, very different things. And I want to talk about them and what they mean. Because hope is what gets people into our business. They join the business because they have hope. They have hope for a better future. They have hope that they'll win a bonus car. They have hope that they'll win a cruise or a vacation in a contest. They have hope that they'll be able to provide a better future for their children. They have hope that they will provide for their whole family. That they will work themselves up and create a success story of their lives. That's hope. But hope only takes people so far. Because if hope gives out, people give up. So what you do, the most important thing you will ever do in this business, is help people turn hope into belief. Because let me tell you what belief is. Belief is when you know you are going to make it. Belief is when you know it's going to happen. You don't hope it will happen. You know it will happen. So when people get belief, we use a term in English. We say someone is over the line. And here's what I mean when I say they're over the line. It means they have crossed a certain threshold. They have developed a strong enough confidence that it has turned into belief. And they believe that the business will work for them. They believe they will have success. They believe that their future is going to be better than their past. And once people get to this level of belief, they don't quit. They will never leave the business once they develop that level of belief. See, when people have hope, they might leave the business when the hope gives up. Because hope is hopeful, but they don't know it. When they get belief, they know it. So it doesn't matter if you get some negative publicity. People with belief, they stay in the business. Doesn't matter if they have some people quit the business, they lose even one of their best leaders. If they have belief, they stay in the business. If there's a problem with the product, if there's a problem with the service, if there's a back order, if there's a miscommunication, if there's some kind of recall, it doesn't matter. If people have belief, they stay in the business. So what you do is we have to guide people and we have to bring them from hope to belief. Because people who believe stay focused and they build their dreams because they believe it's possible. Nobody likes to attempt anything they don't think is possible. They attempt things they believe they can accomplish. So we have to instill that belief in people. How do we do that? First, we got to believe in them before they believe in themselves. Before they make their first presentation, before they call their first prospects, before they host their first event, before they ever stand up on a stage and do a presentation for the first time. You have to believe in them before they believe in themselves. You have to let them know that you believe in them. Sending them a card, sending them a note, an email, a text message, a phone call, recognition at event, telling other people about them, edifying them in appropriate degree to the level that they can grow into. The recognition and the support and the notes are so important to what we do. You know, I can share with you a fascinating experience. I introduced network marketing to the country of Croatia, Slovenia, Bulgaria, and Macedonia. So these were all countries had been under a socialistic type rule, communism, socialism, collectivism of some form. So I remember when I opened up Slovenia and Croatia, I did it for a huge multi-billion-dollar cosmetic company, which I'm sure everybody heard of Avon, right? It was a company my mother worked for, right? Well, later on in my life, they actually hired me, the franchise there in Slovenia, and they wanted to introduce that as a network marketing company in Slovenia. So they brought me in as a consultant to work with their team. And I remember meeting with the first 10 or 15 people who were going to be the people who would open up that country. And I remember meeting with the first people in Croatia who would open up that country. And we opened up Croatia right after the war started. So they were trying to get their independence. We were opening up the company. And the government, to fund the war effort, put a 40% tax on cosmetics the week we opened. There was civil war going on. So we might have an event and there might be people that had to drive 16 hours because they had to go around enemy-occupied territory to get to the events that we were having. But these people, they had hope. They had hope for a better future, so they did these things. And I remember being in Ljubljana, Slovenia, meeting with those first 10 or 15 people. And I talked about recognizing people, edifying people, believing in them before they believe in themselves. And I talked to them about the power of sending notes and sending cards and making phone calls and things like that. And I remember I finished the training, and one of the people who was in the training of these 10 or 15 people, her name was Mrs. Zupancic. She came to me with a stack of postcards, like this thick. And she said, I need your help. I need a favor. I need you to sign all of these postcards. I said, what is this? She said, well, you said, and one of the things I had told them, their top rank was called a diamond director. So I told them, whoever sends the most cards and the most notes is going to be the first diamond director in the country of Slovenia. So at the break, she had gone down to the sundry shop in the hotel where we were meeting, and she bought every single postcard that they had for sale on the rack. And she wanted me to sign every one of those. And she said, every time somebody makes their first call, their first presentation, host their first meeting, I'm going to send them a postcard from you and me. Now, don't anyone else get this idea. I'm not going to sign all those cards today. But I was so impressed with her initiative that I did. I stayed and I signed every single one of those postcards for Mrs. Zupancic. And who do you think was the first diamond director in Slovenia? Who do you think won the first bonus car for that company? Of course, it was Mrs. Zupancic. Here's the funny thing. She was about 60 years old. She had never driven a car in her life. She didn't even have a driver's license, but she won the first bonus car. So she hired a driver to drive her around in this new bonus car. That's the power of belief. We celebrate people. We celebrate their successes. We lend them our belief. That helps them develop belief. We have to go down and drive depth in an organization. You want to go down many, many levels and work with people in the lower levels of an organization and help create excitement and growth and build volume, and that sends excitement all the way up. So you help people as you go down, you drive depth, and you teach them basic skill sets. Here's some of the basic skill sets that we need to teach new people so they develop confidence, so they build belief. The ability to meet people. That's a skill set, and we have to teach them how to do that. The ability to work a candidate list. That's a skill set that needs to be taught. The ability to make powerful invitations is another skill set that anybody can learn, but they need to be taught. The ability to follow up after they've presented to people, to know what to do, what to say, what materials to give them. So these are 4 simple things. The ability to meet people, the ability to work a candidate list, the ability to invite, and the ability to follow up. 4 very simple skill sets, but they are skill sets that people must be proficient in at least all 4 of those. So what I'm suggesting is you will help people as you drive down in depth. Whether you're doing meetings in their living room, you're going to their town and visiting them in a hotel, it might be done on a webcast, it might be on a Skype conference call, it might be done by the telephone. Doesn't matter. We help them drive depth down through an organization, and we're teaching them the skill sets that they can become proficient in those 4 skill sets. And then we teach them, while I'm helping you drive depth down this line, you help your people duplicate the same process, drive depth down the other line, and teach them to be proficient in the 4 basic skill sets: how to meet people, work a candidate list, inviting, and follow up. So they teach those skills and they drive depth. And then we have the next generation of people duplicate the same process. Work down in depth, drive depth, teach the 4 basic skill set, have those people drive depth down another line. Learn those 4 skill sets, teach those 4 skill sets, teach those people how to teach their people. That's what we do in this profession. We teach people how to teach. That's where duplication lives. And that's where belief is built. Because when they start to see growth, when they start to see duplication, they start to see this really, really works. And when people see that this business really, really works, that's when they get belief. And once they have that belief, nothing will ever take them out of this business again. Now, I should know, because I'm a guy who struggled in the business. I struggled for 5 years in the business, losing money, buying products, buying tools, going to events, and always spending more than I made. I had hope, but I didn't have belief. So I joined a company, it didn't work out, I quit. I joined another company, it didn't work out, I quit. Joined another one, joined another one, joined another one. I did this for 5 years. Company after company after company. So then I came to understand, well, all of these companies that I had worked with, they all had people who were successful in them. They all had people who were working with the same product line, the same compensation plan, the same marketing materials, and they were reaching success. So I had to say, it had nothing to do with those companies. It had nothing to do with those compensation plans. It had to do with me, what I was doing. So I had to do some critical analysis about myself and the way that I was doing the business for those 5 years. Because I had gone through some interesting scenarios. You know, when I first joined, I had all this excitement, and I went to everybody I knew, and I had so much excitement, I thought they would be excited. But they weren't excited. They didn't believe me, because I wasn't a successful guy. I had no credibility with people. So I was talking about being successful, I was talking about making money, and they were saying, this guy isn't making any money, this guy doesn't have any success. Why should we believe him about this? So they didn't. So I was begging people, please just join my business. I need to get, somebody in my business. Well, the begging didn't work. So then I was arguing with people. And I could argue and tell them all the reasons and how stupid they were if they didn't join the business. Well, arguing didn't work much better either. So then I thought, well, the people who are successful, they're really good speakers. They do great meetings, great presentations. So they stand up in the front of the room and they have that big board and they're drawing circles on that board. So I said, I'm going to develop that skill to be a powerful presenter at the front of the room. So I started doing meetings 5 nights a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every single night at 5:30, I was doing a presentation. And I told the people, you just bring your people, you put them in front of me, I will sign them up for you. I will do the most amazing presentation. And so I started inviting, getting lots of people to my presentations. And I got to the point where I sponsored like 30 people in a month. And I said, wow, now I've got it made. Because I have 30 people. Probably next month, those 30 people will turn into 150 people. The next month, those 150 people will turn into 1,000 people. And then the 1,000 will turn into 10,000. So I was ready to order my Lamborghini right away. But a funny thing happened. The 30 people, they didn't turn into 150 people. They didn't turn into 100 people. In fact, the 30 people turned into 3 people. because 27 of them dropped out. So I say, okay, these people were probably too stupid or too lazy. I need some new people. So I went out the next month and I sponsored another 30 people. And what happened? Most of them dropped out. I said, well, those were stupid and lazy people. I'll get some other people. So I went out, I sponsored more people. And most of them dropped out. So now I'm 5 years in the business. I've tried everything and nothing is working. So I go and I do some soul searching. And I come to the conclusion that I need to change me. I need to change my approach. I realize what I'm doing is working, but it's not duplicating. I need to do the business in a way that the people I bring into it can duplicate what I'm doing. So I realized by me being the superstar who does all of the meetings, all of the presentations, that I got a lot of people and they say, wow, that was really a great presentation. And they would fill out the application and they would join, but they didn't feel like they could do the business. They couldn't do that presentation themselves. So I did some real thinking about that. And I say, I've got to do the business in a way that the people I bring into the business will be able to duplicate the process. And that's when everything changed for me. That's when I really started to develop what later became my step-by-step duplicable system, which you read about in my books and in my Duplication Nation and all of those tools. That was the crystallizing moment for that. When I really understood it wasn't about me, it was about duplication. Because when it's about you, there's no belief for anyone else. When it's about duplication, there's belief for other people. Because they see the process starting to unfold. They develop new skills. They gain confidence and they build belief. And that's the most important thing we'll ever do. Giving people that belief in themselves. So we have to turn it around. We have to take the focus off of us and we have to put the focus on our teams. We have to become leaders. And the definition of leadership is an important one. And I want to explore that because this is going to be a big facet of how you develop your teams. When we look at leadership, what does that mean exactly? I was fortunate I got asked to contribute to a book on leadership. And they asked me how I would define leadership. So I wrote this chapter and I said, well, I know what leadership is, I think. But how do I describe it? How do I define it? What do we crystallize it into? We can see certain people and say, they're a leader. They show leadership ability. But what does that mean exactly? So as I defined it, here is the definition that I came up with. Leadership is the ability to cause people to willingly do things they wouldn't normally want to do. Let's look at that again. Leadership is the ability to cause people to willingly do things that normally they would not want to do. So let's look at some examples. You know, if we go to the military example, right? Because certainly whenever we look at military, we're talking about leadership. And in the military, you get someone, a guy might go and jump on a grenade to save his group, his unit. A guy may, you know, get off the sampans and charge a beach. Somebody may run into a machine gun nest to put a grenade in there to protect the troops behind him. That's not something people normally want to do, right? But leadership causes them to willingly want to do that. Now, if you look at our profession, we certainly don't have to do anything so radical as charging dangerous as charging a machine gun nest. But we do cause people to willingly want to do things that they don't normally want to do. There's people in this room who bought a tie for the first time because of this business. And they never wanted to wear a tie their whole life. But they saw that people who were serious about the business dressed up, so they bought a tie or they bought a suit. They started to willingly wear a suit. Think about people who make presentations in the business. One of the top leaders I've ever had in my company was a guy I sponsored who was a buddy of mine I played sports with. And he said to me, okay, I will join the business. I will do everything you teach me how to do. But just know that I will never stand on a stage and speak to a group of people. Because he was deathly afraid of that. So I told him, okay, Billy, you don't have to stand on stage. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. But a funny thing happened. He noticed that always the leaders were on stage. He noticed that the leaders were up there making presentations about the business. He noticed the leaders were up on stage giving training to their team on how to do the business. And all of a sudden, he wanted to be on stage. He was very nervous. He was afraid to do it, and he would get a pen and he would write notes on his poem. So he could look down at this because he was afraid that he was going to forget what he would say. So he would have those little notes there on his hand, but he did it. And the funny thing today is, every time there's an event, he's the first person to ask, how much time do I get on the stage? He wants to know how much time will he be able to spend training his people or motivating his people. And he's excited. He can't wait to get on this stage. He willingly chooses to do something that he never wanted to do before. Why? Because he saw that was his next logical evolution on the path that he wanted to take, to become a leader in our profession. Leadership is vital. But here's the thing about leadership. If you ask most people, they say, what's the definition of a leader? They'd say, well, a leader has a lot of followers. But that's not what it's about in our business. In our business, the definition of leadership is about how many leaders you develop. So it's not about how many followers do you have, but how many leaders you develop by helping people turn hope into belief. That's what causes them to become leaders in our profession. That when we guide them, when we mentor them, when we nurture them, and help them create that belief that they know it's going to happen for them. They know it's going to happen for their people. They know the future is going to be better than the past. So they're excited about that. You're in an amazing part of the world. Most of you in this room live here in Turkey. Incredible country. It's only my second time to be back here. I fell in love with it the first time I came here. So I was very excited to come back. And I can tell you, I know there can be challenges to building the business in this part of the world. It's a whole different culture, what we're talking about. But what an opportunity it is here in this part of the world. What an exciting time to be in this business. You know, we're going to do 2 segments today. You know, we're going to have a break in a while, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a second session. And I'm going to talk about a new book that I have coming out called Risky is the New Safe. And that book is about the future and all of the challenges that are going to be created in the future, and then all of the opportunities that are created by those challenges. And that's really, I couldn't think of a more appropriate subject for Turkey right now than that. Because it's such a wonderful time to be alive today. It's such a wonderful time to be doing this business right here, right now. Extraordinary opportunity for you. But to make the most of that opportunity, you've got to have the right mindset. Because here's something that I discovered. Broke people think differently than wealthy people. Healthy people think differently than sick people. Happy people think differently than depressed people. They actually think differently. Because here's the thing. The average human being has about 60,000 thoughts a day. Now that seems like a lot, but most of those are the same thought that they have over and over and over every day. Say, I have to brush my teeth. I have to take the cap off the toothpaste. They have the same thought every single day. One of the things psychologists have proven is that these thoughts go through the same pattern in their brain. They go through the same neurotransmitter, and they actually create ruts in your brain. The same thought that you think every day. So the thought goes through the same pathway in your brain every day when you have that same thought. So part of creative thinking or lateral thinking is creating new neural pathways in your brain. You literally are changing the way you think. Because that's a mindset for success. And successful people have developed a certain type of thinking, a certain way of thinking, which is founded on belief, by the way. They develop enough belief which causes them to think differently. So, this is what I've been studying for 25 years now, is how successful people think differently. And the funny thing is, I have begun to think differently. And there were people who knew me 25 years ago, and they know me today, and they say, well, Randy has changed. He's not the same person. And you know what? They're absolutely right. I have changed. That's why I'm rich. if I did not change, I would still be poor. So of course I changed, and I'm proud of the fact I changed. And I'm proud of the fact that I change more each and every day. Each and every week, every month, every year, I'm a different person than I was the person before. Because I work on the way I think every day. And you have to work on the way you think every day. You have to be around people who believe in you. You have to be around people who support you. You have to be around people who choose success. People who see a bigger vision for themselves. People who see a bigger vision for you. People who want a brighter future. These are people who think about possibilities, not impossibilities. And it's funny, I'm doing so many interviews for the new book. And so I confessed something on a radio station a couple of weeks ago. And I want to confess it with you guys right now. Here's the confession. I remember reading in the newspaper that Ted Turner was going to start a new television network. And it was going to be called the Cable News Network, CNN. And he was going to do news every 30 minutes. He was going to have a show of the news. Well, I said, this is the craziest idea I've ever heard. Because news, you showed the news at like 10 o'clock at night. There was the evening news. People watched it, and then they went to bed. Once a day. There was a 6 o'clock one at night, too, or something like that. But I said, who would watch a network that was just news all the time? With no entertainment, no sitcoms, no comedies, no programs. I thought that was the craziest idea I have ever heard. But he started it anyway. Then ABC announced they were going to start a new network, and they were just going to show sports all day, every day. Well, I thought this was even crazier than the news network. Because the news, they did at least for half an hour, but the sports was usually just 4 minutes or 3 minutes in the half hour of the news show. Now these crazy people were going to do sports every 30 minutes, every 60 minutes, all day, 24 hours a day. This was the craziest. This was even crazier than CNN. I just thought they're going to lose a fortune on this. Now fast forward many, many, many years later, I almost never watch television. But if I do watch television, you know what I'm probably watching? CNN or ESPN, which is the network that ABC started for the sports. And they have ESPN2 and they have ESPN3. Because there's so much sports to show that even running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's still too much for one network, so they started a second one. There's still too much for the second network, so they started a third one. Now here's the thing I want you to know. I was ignorant. I didn't know about that those ideas could work. But here's the thing I confessed on the radio station the other day. If you would have come to me 20 years ago with the idea for Yahoo or Microsoft or Facebook or Twitter, the iPhone, the iPad, a smartphone. Forget a smartphone. If you would have come to me with the idea for a dumb phone, if you would have come to me for the idea for a cell phone, I would have told you, all of the reasons why they could not work. All of the reasons why they would not work. I could have given you every single one of those. I could have, any one of those. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Yahoo, Microsoft, Apple. I could have given you 100 different reasons why they would never work. Because that's where my mindset was at that time. I had impossibility thinking. Because if you, whatever idea you brought to me, I would take all the rational, logical ways, and my default position, my automatic default position, was to think of why this could not work. But see, visionaries, that isn't the way they think. Successful people, that isn't the way they think. They think about how could this work? If it could work, how would it work? If it was possible for this to work, how would it be possible? This is a mindset. And to become successful in this business, or any business, requires to change that mindset. To start to look for possibilities. To start to look for how things can work instead of why they cannot work. This is what these people in the VIP session, this is what they have done. They have changed the way they think. They look at how things could be possible, why things can work instead of why things cannot work. You need people like that in your life. Jim Rohn was a very famous American author and speaker. He said, your income will be the average income of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And he said that same quote for many, many years. He was famous for that quote. Your income will be the average income of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, after studying prosperity for the last 25 years, here's what I can tell you. I believe every area of your prosperity will be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your health will be the median health of the people you hang around with. Your relationships will be similar to the people you hang around with. Your marriage, if you're married, your marriage will be the average of the 5 couples that you guys socialize with the most. This works true in every area of prosperity. Because we get programmed by the environment around us. We get influenced by this environment, by something that I'm going to call mind viruses. Viruses that you actually get in your subconscious mind, in your brain. So just like your computer can get a virus and then it gets infected with the virus and it sends that virus out to other computers, the same thing happens with people. We get infected with mind viruses. And once you get that virus, it parasitizes the host and causes you to spread that mind virus to all of the people around you. So see, if you would have come to me 20 years ago, The reason I would have told you that why Yahoo couldn't work, or Amazon couldn't work, or Microsoft couldn't work, is because that was my belief. My core belief was that only special people got success. That you needed to lie and cheat and steal to be successful. That poverty was virtuous. And I hung around with all kinds of people who thought the same way. My income was the average income of the people I spent the most time with. And the people I spent the most time with were all broke people like me. So one of the things that happened to me was when I was 30 years old, I lost everything. I had made some money in our business, right? Now, I had come from the restaurant business. Because remember, I was a dishwasher who worked for the minimum wage. That's how I started my career. So I worked from washing dishes to become a cook, and then a waiter, then a manager trainee, and then I was an assistant manager at the restaurant, and then I became a manager for a restaurant company, for a chain. And I thought I made it, you know? But I was still broke. So I thought, well, the secret, and I was working 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, and I was still broke. So I thought the secret must be to own my own restaurant. So I didn't really have much money, because remember, I was poor. My friend didn't have much money, because that's who I hung around with, other broke people. But we decided to open a restaurant together. And so we took the little money we had, and we borrowed other money, and we tried to open this restaurant on credit. And this didn't work out very well. We were struggling, and we were struggling. And then finally, one day the government came in, and they seized my restaurant, and they auctioned it off to pay the tax liabilities. So I was 30 years old, and I had no job, no car, no money, and no credit cards even. No credit at all. I owed about 55,000 US dollars, which at that point in my life, it might have been $20 million for how much that money that seemed to me. And I had no income. So I started selling my furniture. The sofa, the tables, the kitchen stuff, the bed. Finally, I'm sleeping on the floor. I have no furniture left. I'm eating macaroni and cheese 3 times a day. Because I found that was the cheapest meal that I could find, because I could go to the supermarket and I could buy 4 boxes of macaroni and cheese for $1 at that time, 25 cents a box. So I could eat a meal for 25 cents. And that was my meal 3 times a day for months, sleeping on the floor. That was a mindset. It was a way I thought. So it worked out what I predicted, which was, well, even though I tried, the odds were against me. Because I wasn't one of those special people. I wasn't, I was just the little guy fighting the forces of evil. And the evil forces won again. Just shows that's just the way it is. Because I was infected with those mind viruses that most people in the world today are infected with. And let's talk about what they are. What are those mind viruses? That money is bad. Rich people are evil. It's spiritual to be poor. Or it's noble to be poor, and that you have to sell your soul to become rich, or you have to exploit people and lie and cheat and steal to become successful. Those were the mind viruses that I had allowed myself to become infected with. And that was the reason why I could always tell you why every good idea wouldn't work. Because of the programming I had in my mind. Those mind viruses. And I want you to know, for most people in the world, those are the mind viruses that they are infected with. And we get those mind viruses every day. They're infecting us. Because, and let me tell you where we get them. We get them from organized religion sometimes. And by this I mean almost all of the world's major organized religions have some subliminal messages, like it's kind of noble to be poor or spiritual to be poor. And that's not the truth. There's nothing spiritual inherent in poverty. There's nothing noble about being poor. And I know, because I was poor for many, many years. Now, there's nothing wrong with being born poor. Many of us are born poor. To me, though, it's such a crime to stay poor, because you don't have to, and you're not meant to. I actually believe you have a creator who wants you to be prosperous. So, but organized religion gives us some of these limiting beliefs. Governments give us some of these limiting beliefs. Because governments need you to be needy. They need you to require them. Because governments are people in power. And they want, and you know, power can corrupt people. And people want to stay in power. And the way they stay in power for government is to give people entitlements. To promise to give them free things. So government creates the perception of many of these mind viruses. And then the third place you get them is what I'm going to call the data sphere. And by data sphere, I mean TV, radio, the internet, movies, books, television, social media, your friends and family. They're assaulting you with all of these mind viruses. And it's the same basic ones over and over. Money is bad. Rich people are evil. It's noble to be poor. You got to sell your soul to be successful. So what happens? You start off with the desire to be successful. Because I think most people would rather be successful. Most people would rather have money. Most people would like to live in a nice home, drive a nice car, be able to have choices for themselves and their families. But what happens? You get this conscious level which says, I want to be successful. I want to get promoted to the next rank. I would like to have a nice car. I'd like to have a beautiful home. I would like to take my family on nice holidays. I would like to provide for my children. I would like to support charities. I want to tithe to the source of my spiritual nourishment. This is all on the conscious mind. But then we have the subconscious mind, the one that's programmed with the limiting beliefs that money is bad or rich people are evil. Well, here's the thing. This causes a conflict. Because on the conscious level, you want success. On the subconscious level, you say, well, you don't want to be one of those bad, mean, rich people. So consciously you strive to get the promotion, to build another rank, to make more money, to be more successful. But on the subconscious level, you have this programming that tells you that that's not a worthwhile cause, that you are going to have to do bad things to become successful. And you get this conflict. Here's the thing you have to understand. When the conscious mind and the subconscious mind come into conflict, the subconscious mind always wins. Because it's much, much more powerful. The conscious mind is the 5% that's on the surface. The subconscious mind is the 95% that is under the surface. And the 95% is going to beat the 5% every single time. So for you to create success, for you to help your teams to create success, we have to change the subconscious programming in your brain. We have to, as I say, we have to actually think differently. We have to change the way our mind operates. We have to become conscious of our thoughts. We have to become the thinker of the thought. And I'm going to go one step even further and say you have to think about what you think about. Let me say that again. You have to think about what you think about. James Allen wrote one of the greatest books of all time called As a Man Thinketh. And in that book, he equates our brain with a garden. And he says you can cultivate your garden, and you can grow flowers like this, if those were real. You can create vegetables and fruits if you cultivate the garden. But if you just let the wind blow whatever seeds into the garden, you're going to have weeds and overgrowth, and it's just going to be unmanageable, and you're not going to create anything consciously with that. And that's the analogy of the brain. You have to control the thoughts that you give precedence to. You think about what you think about. So you protect yourself from negative influences. So that might be, it could be religious beliefs, it could be government propaganda, it could be the television shows you watch, the movies you go to, and most importantly, the people you hang out with. Those 5 people that you spend the most time with. Are they people who bring you up? Or are they people that try to pull you down? Because there's some people that, you are trying to pull them across the finish line, but you know what? They're over here and they're trying to pull you back to the other side. You got to make sure that the people you bring in the business, they're people who want to be pulled across the finish line, not people that want to pull you back. Here's something I've discovered after 25 years of studying human behavior. Most people surround themselves with other people who give them permission to stay where they are. Let me say that again so you really get this. Most people surround themselves with other people who give them permission to stay where they are. That's not where success is. To reach high levels of success, you have to surround yourself with people who challenge you. People who dare you to be better. People who dare you to do great things. People who dare you to be amazing. That's the difference. We have to cultivate the people in our lives. We have to cultivate the environments we work in, the environments we play in, the environments we create in. We have to cultivate greatness. Just like we would water flowers, we have to water our creative genius. We have to water our dreams. We have to water our hopes and turn those hopes into belief with practical experience, with small steps. You get to one rank, you say, hey, it worked. Let me try for the next rank. You make a successful presentation. You say, wow, my prospect joined the business. Let me make another presentation. Wow, that presentation worked. Let me try another one. Oh, this presentation didn't work. What did I do different this time than I did the last time? What do I need to check? What do I need to test? What do I need to track? What do I need to change so the next one works better than the last one? Now that one is successful. I build a different level of confidence. So I attempt another one. Now it's successful. So you reach the next rank. That builds more confidence. So now you go for the next rank. That creates more confidence. We build step by step by step. We gain confidence. We develop skills. And we build belief. We are changing the way we think during this process. We start to think about what we think about. We analyze the people, the thoughts, the environment around us. And we say, are these people, thoughts, environment, conditions empowering us toward belief or pulling us backwards towards desolation? Most people, if we ask them, what is the opposite of success? Most people would tell us the opposite of success is failure. But that's not true. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is mediocrity. Failure is actually part of the success process. Every successful person has experienced failure to learn how to become successful. Failure is the stepping stone to success. Think of that again. Let me repeat that. Failure is the stepping stone to success. Because failure allows us to course correct. Failure allows us to change our strategies, to change our approach, to learn new information, to gain new wisdom, to develop character. I promise you, every leader that you will ever see on the stage at one of your events will be the person and the people who have experienced the most failures, the most rejections, the most dropouts, the most no-shows, the most challenges. And they became a leader because they learned from those challenges. They allowed those challenges to change the way they think. They allowed those challenges to develop new skills, to try different things, to develop self-discipline, to develop character, to become a stronger person. And that is the most important thing that happens in this process, is how you choose to face failure. If we look at this whole journey of going from hope until belief, that's going to be where it's going to come about. Is the moment that you get a rejection. The moment somebody doesn't show up. The moment somebody drops out. If you choose to say, oh, it'll never work. I tried it and it didn't work. I called 10 people and nobody said yes, so I'm going to just give up. Or, if you choose a different response. Let me tell you the first meeting I ever did in this business. I scheduled it for my home. I invited about 20 people who said they would come to my house for my first meeting in this business. You know how many showed up? 0. 0, as Bill Clinton would say. 0. Nobody showed up for my first meeting. Now, I could have quit right then. I should have quit right then if I bought into what most people thought. But I had a different thought. You know what my thought was? I said, I invited 20 people to this event. Not one of them showed up. So you know what that means? That means I am the most ambitious person that I know. That was the choice I made. That I came to the thing, I am the most ambitious person I know. That was how I had started to change the way I think. And that's what carried me over. So I got to the point to move from hope to later when I got to belief. Now I say successful people think differently. Let me share a story of how this process came about for me. And I want you to know how I earned an extra $500,000 in 30 minutes. Probably 20 minutes, but let's be conservative and say it took me 30 minutes to make an extra $500,000 US. I was traveling to Australia for the first time. I had been hired to do some consulting for a company in Perth, Australia. So you fly to Sydney first, and I was changing planes at Sydney. And I'm walking through the airport, I see a bookstore, and I always go into bookstores, because leaders are readers. So I go to a bookstore, and I see the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And I say, wow, The Magic of Thinking Big. That was one of my favorite books of all time. You know, I don't even, it's been years since I read that. I don't even know where my copy is. I think I think I gave it to someone else. So I bought a new copy of The Magic of Thinking Big, and I put it in my suitcase. Got on the plane, I flew to Perth. Now I was meeting with these people. They had hired me to do some consulting. They had paid me $18,000. The idea was I was supposed to review their business venture and tell them if I thought it was viable and give them a report back. And so they wanted me to fly to Perth, meet with them, and give them my opinion on this. And so it was an idea they had which was going to be licensed outside of Australia. And they couldn't do business. They were taking some curriculum from the university there in Australia, and they were going to license it to other countries around the world. So $18,000 is what they're supposed to pay me. So I go there and I review the thing and I tell them, yes, this is a viable thing, this can work. And then I have an idea. And I say, wait, guys, I have this idea. I have an idea for how we could take this online. Remember, this is back in the startup day of the internet. Nobody's thinking about the internet, Mr. Bond. Nobody's doing online learning. So I have this idea. So I say, hey, listen, just take me back to my hotel room. I want to work on this, and I'll come back tomorrow and I'll present it to you. They're like, well, we want to show you Perth. We want to take you to dinner tonight. I said, no, I need to just work on this. Let me go back. So I go back to, they say, okay, sorry, So they're very disappointed, but they take me back to my hotel. And I'm in the hotel, and I've got a yellow legal pads, and I'm drawing out this website, and then I would do this with this kind of learning. Here's how I do kindergarten, and this is what I would do at the high school, and this is how it would work for adult learning, and I order room service for lunch, and I'm working and working, and I order room service for dinner. I'm working and working. I'm working till, 1 in the morning. And I come up with this brilliant idea that could make them, if this is executed right, this could be a multi-billion-dollar idea. But I'm thinking, these people are paying me $18,000. That's it. This idea could make them billions. But, how do I tell them that, you're going to have to pay me more money to give you this amazing idea? So I'm thinking, I just have to tell them, this is not what you hired me for originally. I came up with this new creative process, which is over and above what you paid, but you're going to have to, give me, $50,000 for tomorrow or something. So this is what I'm thinking. Then I decide to go to bed. Now I do what I do every night before I go to bed. I look next to my bed for what book do I have on the book stand to read something positive to program my subconscious mind before I go to sleep. What book is there? The Magic of Thinking Big, which I bought in the airport. So I read chapter 1 of The Magic of Thinking Big. Well, by the time I finished that chapter, I said, I need to be thinking bigger. I'm going to have to tell these guys that they're going to need to give me a couple $1,000s a month retainer contract for this idea. And $25,000 up front. And then so much a month. So I'm feeling a little better. So I decide to read chapter 2. So I finish reading chapter 2 of The Magic of Thinking Big. I'm ready to go to sleep, and I say, well, you know what? I'm going to tell these people they're going to have to give me $50,000 plus like $5,000 a month and a percentage of profit. Now I'm feeling so good. I read chapter 3. I finished chapter 3, and now I'm really thinking big. So I think about what I'm going to do, and I relax, and I go to sleep. I wake up the next day, they pick me up, they take me in the office, I sit at the conference table and I draw out, this would be that and this, and then they've got a big board at the conference room and I'm drawing, here's how this website would feed this website, and this website would feed that one, and this website would link to that one, and so I finished the whole thing, and I sit down, and the guy says, Randy, this is brilliant. We always knew we were going to do something online, but we didn't know how to do it. Now you have figured this out. So tell me, what will it take to get the architect of this vision to work with us? And I said, well, you need to give me a check for $100,000 to start. Then you need to pay me $50,000 a month for 18 months. And a percentage, I would like a percentage of what we'll be able to create as equity in the company. And he looked at me and he said, well, obviously such a big contract like that would have to be approved by the board of directors. But I'm on the executive committee. These two guys are on the executive committee. Give us until Friday when we can convene a meeting with the board of directors, and we will put this proposal to them. And 2 weeks later, they flew to California from Perth. I flew to California from Miami. We met at a nice little resort. They brought me a check for $100,000 and a contract. And I can tell you that contract was $500,000 more than any contract I had ever done up until that point. And the reason that contract was $500,000 more was because of the 20 or 30 minutes that it took me to read 3 chapters of The Magic of Thinking Big. I expanded the window through which I saw the world. That's what we do. We build this belief for people. We expand the window through which they see the world. All right, we're going to go to break in a minute. Oh yeah, we're right on time. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to have a 30-minute break. That's use your phone call, use the restroom, do everything you want, but you got to be back here for 30 minutes because we got another session that we're going to do on risk and thing. But here's the last thing I want to tell you before then. The power of belief. Sitting in that jail cell, hearing those keys in the door, seeing that man who I never met walking in, come in my jail cell, look at me and tell me, you don't belong here. You're capable of great things. He believed in me before I believed in myself. And I borrowed from his belief. So for you guys who came here today, who don't have that belief in yourself yet, I want to let you know, I believe in you. I have been where you are. I know what you can do. I know the potential here. And all those notes I got on Twitter and all those messages I got on Facebook, I know the dreams that are in this audience. And I believe in you, and I want you to borrow my belief because you deserve success. Peace. I love you guys.
Tekrar hoş geldiniz. Hazır mısınız? Hazır mısınız? It's the time to surprise Randy Gage. Okay? Please welcome back Randy Gage.
Risky is the new safe. What used to be safe is now risky. You know, when I grew up, my mother told me, go to school, get an education, get a job for a big company, and you will be set for life. Now, fortunately for me, they threw me out of high school, so I wasn't able to follow my mother's advice. And for that reason, I'm very wealthy today. But now my mother, she gave me the best advice she knew. And I think millions of mothers and fathers all over the world were giving their children the same advice. Go to school, get a job with a big company. You're going to work for them for 40 years. They will provide a pension plan, and then you will be able to retire in security. And that is simply not true any longer. Today, that is the riskiest thing you could do. Waiting around for a company to protect your future. Very risky. Waiting around for a government pension. Very risky. What used to be safe is now quite risky. I have to tell you, I knew the world changed forever when I took a trip to Phuket, Thailand. I went there to do something I had always dreamed of, which was I wanted to ride an elephant through the rainforest. So I go there to ride the elephant, and while I was there, I came across a show where they were training monkeys to harvest coconuts. Now, it was a pretty interesting thing. They train these monkeys because they replace human workers. It takes 2 to 3 months to train a monkey. And they have cables that go to the top of these trees. And the monkey climbs to the top. He takes one hand and one foot and he hangs onto the cable. He takes the other hand and the other foot and he spins the coconuts till they fall off to the ground. And once the monkey is trained, the monkey can harvest 1,000 coconuts a day. Well, we have been using animals for beasts of burden for centuries, right? We ride horses, cows pull plows, horses, mules pull plows, camels. But to use a monkey for physical dexterity, trained labor that used to require humans, this was kind of an interesting thing to me, because I was looking at that and I was just thinking, I hope nobody from American Airlines sees this monkey training. Because if they do, you could figure there'd be somebody in the headquarters who would be saying, could we replace a couple of flight attendants on the 777s with a couple of monkeys? to hand out a bag of peanuts and cans of Coke. So I'm thinking about that on my way back from Thailand. I overnight in San Francisco to break up the trip. I go into the airline lounge the next day, and there's a couple with a carrier with an adorable little puppy in the carrier. Well, I love all animals, so I say, hey, can I play with your puppy? They say, yeah. And the lady tells me, my puppy is a clone. I laugh. I thought she's joking. She says, no, he's a clone. And it turns out he was. They were actually on my flight back to Miami. We landed and there was all these reporters and photographers and camera crews. And this wasn't the first cloned puppy. It was just the first cloned puppy that came to the United States. And they were bringing him back from South Korea, where he had been cloned from the DNA of this family's beloved pet, which had died. Whoa. Here's the thing. I'm a science fiction fan. So I love Star Wars and Star Trek, and I've seen the clone armies and everything, but that's science fiction. This puppy was in my hands, was real. Now, I had heard that they had cloned sheep, and I had heard that they had cloned camels in Dubai or somewhere, but that still seemed abstract to me. It's not tangible. When you hold a puppy in your hands and he licks your face, and it's the most adorable, beautiful, playful puppy, like any puppy that you would rescue from any animal shelter anywhere, and you realize that puppy was cloned, your whole world changes. And that's what happened to me. And that's what led me to write the new book, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. Risky is the new safe. Because I look at that and I say, how much longer will it be before we clone human beings? And then when we clone human beings, what happens next? If Jones and Son hardware can just clone more sons, why would they hire more employees? What does that do to the labor market? What does that do to the economy? What happens when somebody really does start cloning an army? What happens when you're a clone and you're at the dinner table with 12 other brothers who are exact clones like you? What is that conversation about? What are the mental issues that are going to happen with that? What's going to happen when someone starts cloning sex workers in a third world country somewhere? You say, that's immoral, or we shouldn't do it. It doesn't matter whether you like it or don't like it. We're going to debate the moral and ethical issues of cloning probably for decades. But that isn't going to change the fact that it's going to happen. It's going to happen in our lifetime. And maybe the United Nations will get together, all of the countries, and they will sign a treaty and they will say nobody will be allowed to clone human beings. It doesn't matter. There will be some country somewhere who says we have no oil, we have no coal, we have no natural resources. The best thing for our economy is we will become the cloning country. And that'll be the new Saudi Arabia, right? Will be the cloning country. Instead of the oil countries, it'll be the cloning countries. And then what happens if China says, well, yeah, since you're cloning anyway, why don't you clone us 2 million soldiers for our army? And the United States says, well, if China's cloning 2 million soldiers, we need 3 million soldiers for our army. And Russia says, well, if America is cloning 3 million soldiers, we might want 3.5 million soldiers. Where does that stop? Where does that take us? What does this do to families, to relationships, to society, to the psyche of the world as a whole? This takes us to the real gist of what I'm writing about in the new book and what I want to talk to you guys about today, which is we are entering the time in human history of the most cataclysmic changes that have ever happened. There will be faster, more dramatic, more radical change in the next 10 years than there was in the last 100. The exponential speed of growth because of the advent of technology is going to be mind-bending. So these cataclysmic changes are going to create catastrophic challenges. And the point of the book, and the point of my talk with you, is that these catastrophic changes are going to create breathtaking opportunities. Because if you look back at the Great Depression, during that time, some of the greatest fortunes in human history were created during the Great Depression. And look at history all over the world, in any country you go to, during times of economic uncertainty, economic upheaval, economic chaos, depressions, and recessions, that's when fortunes are created. Because with every challenge comes a corresponding opportunity. And that we are entering a time of the greatest opportunity in human history. If you had a choice, if you had a chance, if you were in that movie Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, and you got in that DeLorean, and you got to pick wherever you could set the time dial to go into the future, the best place to go would be right here, right now. Because of what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Now here's the thing. Millions of jobs are going to be eliminated by technology. They just won't exist anymore because technology makes them irrelevant. You know, I'm one of the last people on earth. I use a travel agent. I call her, I say, I've got a speech in Istanbul. I need a ticket. And she books the ticket and emails it to me. I'm one of the last people, you know, travel agents are going extinct, right? Those jobs are not coming back. Now, why am I using a travel agent? Because I have used the same travel agent for the last 30 years. And when I started using her, she had a big office and there was 12 agents in the office and they all had a phone with those 5 lines, white buttons. Most of you in this room are too young. You don't even know what those phones look like. But she had like 12 agents with those phones. Now, the other 11, they're all gone. She works by herself. Those other 11 jobs, they're never coming back. The clerk who works in the neighborhood video store, the typesetter who used to work for the printer, those jobs are never coming back. Technology has eliminated them forever. So here's what we know for sure. Millions of jobs are going to be eliminated by technology. That's a pretty big challenge that the world will be facing. Here's the next thing we will know. Millions of other jobs will need complete retraining because of technology. Let's suppose Got doctors here. Hetty's a doctor, right? Suppose you're a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, right? You went to school for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, and you do an open heart, heart transplant surgery. You've been in practice for 20 years. Well, do you know in 10 years, your skills are probably obsolete, because open heart surgery is going to be done with a joystick from the control room. And so the doctor is going to be in there with the joystick, and the patient's going to be on the other side of the window, or the patient's going to be 2,000 kilometers away or 10,000 kilometers away. So the physician who went to school for 12 years and practiced for 20, they're probably obsolete. And the most qualified heart transplant surgeon in 2025 is probably this little girl who's sitting here in the front row. Because she's going to grow up with that skill set from day one. She won't need retraining. She has been doing that her whole life. Think of the detectives. How do most people get promoted to detective? They start off, they're a patrol officer, walking the beat, driving a patrol car. But see, we're already in the spot now where detective work, you know what it takes to be a good detective? You need a degree in biogenetic engineering to hunt down DNA, because that's how crimes are solved now. You need a degree in computing, because you're tracing money through 18 different countries and 32 different shell corporations, and you need to know forensic science to be a detective. So the old skill set is obsolete. We can take the most basic minimum wage job. Suppose you work in a warehouse and your job is to move boxes and drive a forklift. Your ability to get that job, to get a raise, or to get a promotion very soon might be based on your skill set of wearing an exoskeleton suit on your body. Because by wearing that exoskeleton suit, you'll be able to pick up the boxes of 200-pound bathtubs, 4 of them, and pick them up and carry them over here. I was watching a special on the Discovery Network, and I saw a man pick up a car and throw it off a cliff because he was wearing an exoskeleton suit. So all of the rules have changed. So now what do we know so far? Millions of jobs are going to be eliminated by technology. Millions of other jobs are going to need complete retraining to keep their jobs because of technology. Technology changes everything. Think about social media, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. This has changed the business of branding forever. No company can control their brand anymore. You work for ExxonMobil, right? They have their brand, they have their logo, they have their corporate colors, they have all of this image which they want to portray with their brand. Nike and Disney and Hyatt and Hilton, every major international brand tries to protect it. But with social media, you can't do that any longer. Because if I stay at the Marriott Hotel and I don't like my room, I can do a YouTube video on it and put it up online, and it might get 2 million views in the next 2 weeks because it goes viral. So social media changes everything. Mobile changes everything even more. Mobile is going to be the most disruptive change in the world of marketing and branding that every business in the world has ever seen. And it will impact every single business, from beauty salons to chiropractors, to oil companies, to doctors, attorneys, restaurants, movie theaters. Every single business in the world will be dramatically and unequivocally changed forever because of mobile apps and the cloud. Because it changes all of the rules. See, this is the thing. Like if you've got a young daughter like this and you want to prepare her for the future, it's more difficult than ever because the best jobs of 2020, they haven't even been invented yet. They can't train her for those jobs because we don't even know what those jobs are going to be. And technology is changing so fast, the rules keep changing faster and faster and faster. So there's 5 billion people in the world today that have a smartphone. 5 billion, and that changes everything. Pretty soon you won't need a smartphone because you're going to have a screen on your wristwatch. And here's what I want you to know. The lines between the screens are all going to disappear. So you'll have your feed on your wristwatch. It'll follow when you look at your smartphone. When you get in your car, it'll be in the little video display that's on the dashboard of the car. When you walk into your house, it's going to play on your 8-meter wide HD TV, which is automatically going to come on when you enter the room. When you go sit down at your desk, it's going to migrate to your screen on your monitor. And it's just going to follow you whatever screen you're on anywhere. And that disrupts everything. So see, there's some people are going to lose fortunes when these changes come about. But there will be other people that make fortunes when these changes come about. So all the rules are going to change. Now your content is going to follow you on whatever screen's in front of you. So fortunes are going to be made until the Google eyeglasses come out, and then nobody's going to need any screens anymore. And all those other screens are going to lose fortunes, and the people with the Google eyeglasses are going to make a fortune. But you know what? There's probably 2 kids in a college dorm room right now with nothing but a couple of empty pizza boxes, but they have an idea which will become the contact lens, which makes the Google eyeglasses obsolete. And after that, somebody will have the idea for the microchip, which gives you the holograph, which makes the contact lens obsolete. And you understand, I'm not talking 50 years from now. I'm talking in the next decade. Cataclysmic, catastrophic changes. The lines between the source of the content are all going to disappear. Right now we have the broadcast networks, we have the cable networks, and now we have internet-created content that doesn't need a network. Somebody just creates a movie, creates a television show, creates a seminar, a training, some how-to something, and they put it up online. Now understand, Rupert Murdoch at Fox, he hasn't figured this out yet, and he's a billionaire. Mark Cuban hasn't figured this out yet, and he's a billionaire. See, nobody's figured this out yet because nobody knows how this is all going to work out. The people who do are going to make fortunes. So right now, see, the people at the big networks, they're saying, well, maybe we should look for our next star from YouTube. YouTube is saying, hey, we're going to create our own stars on the YouTube channel. Netflix, which is a streaming video rental company, is now creating their own content. These are huge changes, guys. So what does it mean? I can go to my hotel here in Istanbul, which gets a satellite TV. There's like 200 channels on that TV. People, same thing in Miami where I live, my cable system has 200 channels. People say, how many are we going to have? 300, 500, 1,000 channels? Where is this all going? Let me tell you where it's all going. There's not going to be 500 channels. There's not going to be 1,000 channels. There's going to be 7 billion channels. Because every person on earth will create their own channel. And they'll say, I want to get Randy Gage's blog and Seth Godin's RSS feed, and I want the American Idol version from United States and Australia and the moon. I want to get all the new songs from Nickelback. I want to get all of the sequels to Iron Man and the Avengers. I want to get all my iTunes. I want to get my stock quotes. I want to get my bank statements. I want to get the breaking news from CNN. I want to get this genre of music or this genre of movies. I want to order a pilot of a television show I'm thinking about. I want to subscribe to a movie series. They will create their own channel, which will just follow them everywhere they go, on all those screens and those eyeglasses and those contact lenses and the holographic suites when we get there. Virtual reality. That will change everything. And you know what will change virtual reality? When they fine-tune virtual reality sex. That will be the most disruptive change in society of the last 2,000 years. Because think about what Napoleon Hill wrote about the power of sexual energy in the book, Think and Grow Rich, and how it has to be harnessed and channeled. And think about how now you see guys who they'll go to a casino and spend 2 days and gamble away all of their children's college fund, right? Imagine when they could go to a virtual reality holosuite and pick the movie star or the TV, you know, the person for their partner. And they can say, I want to be with Angelina Jolie. Or they can say, I want Angelina Jolie's lips. And I want J-Lo's hips. And I want this size breast. And I want this color eyes. And I want this height and this weight. And create their perfect virtual partner. And see, in the virtual world, there's no enlarged prostates. In the virtual world, there's no traffic jams. In the virtual world, you never get passed up for a promotion. You never get denied for a raise. In the virtual world, everything is possible. Everything is perfect. There will be people who go into the virtual world and never want to leave it. Think about, do you guys know Donald Trump here? Do you see him? You get, okay. Think about Donald Trump. If he could get a virtual partner who all day, every day just tells him how beautiful his hair is, he'll never want to leave. There will be millions of people that this will create the most catastrophic rip in the fabric of relationships, families, marriages. So this is huge changes, challenges we're talking about. But understand, do you know what that will do? That will create opportunities for psychiatrists, psychologists, addiction centers, mental health centers. Because with every challenge is the corresponding opportunity. So here's the analogy I would give. See, we assign subjective value to circumstances. So if you were coming here today to come to my seminar and you got a flat tire, oh, this would be a bad thing, right? Say, wow, the seminar starts at 12:30, it's 11:30 and now I got a flat tire. This is horrible. But to the guy who owns the tire store, this is great news. Because he's raising a daughter that in a few years he wants to send her to university perhaps, or he's planning his retirement. And now today he's going to sell an extra tire. So the same event, one flat tire in a car, one person assigned a very negative value to it, another person assigned a very positive value to it, even though it was the same event. So you see, I'm not judging these things. And I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they are what they are. And you may not like virtual reality sex. You may not like the idea of cloning sex workers. You may not like any of these things. It doesn't prevent them from going to happen. It doesn't prevent them from causing challenges to our society that we will need to address. And this will be a chance for parents to have those learning moments with their children. This will be a chance for families to come back together. This will be an opportunity for society to reevaluate what's important to us and what we need to do better. This will be tremendous, breathtaking opportunities to create peace and harmony and prosperity in our world. So just like the flat tire, nobody likes that inconvenience of a flat tire, but it's still, for someone else, they sell a tire. And the guy who sold a tire is going to use that money and buy something else, and that's going to help someone else. And they're going to use that money, and that's going to help someone else. You know, I was watching the Discovery Channel again this morning. I was in the gym doing my cardio work, and I was watching Animal Kingdom. And there was a big mountain lion, and there was a little deer, and he ate the baby deer. And you know what? I hate for the baby deer, but that's how the mountain lion lives, is he eats this animal, and some animal eats that animal, and then some animal eats that animal, and it's the ecosystem. So that's just the way of the world. So change is going to happen. Challenges are going to be created by these changes, and we who are prepared for them will profit. And this will be the greatest time ever to be alive in human history. Now let me tell you some other cataclysmic news that's going to happen. Governments are going bankrupt. They're mismanaged. They're corrupt. They spend more money than they take in. They print more money, they spend more money, they print more money, they spend more money. If you ran your business the way the United States runs the government, they would put you in prison for a pyramid scheme. If you ran your business the way Britain runs England, you would go to prison. If you ran your business the way the European Union countries run their business, you would be put in jail. Here's what I predict in the book. The euro will collapse within 2 years. It will collapse or be completely disbanded because it's a bankrupt model. They don't have money. They're just printing money. And the two economic engines of the EU, which is Germany and France, both those economies have slowed down, and now there's no extra money. There's no growth going on anywhere. Spain has a 25% youth unemployment rate. Greece is bankrupt. Italy is bankrupt. Spain is bankrupt. So now you have some countries in the EU, they tell people, we're going to raise your taxes and you're going to have to retire later because we're going to take some of that money and we're going to send it to Greece because in Greece they promise their people they can retire when they're 47 years old. People say, wait a minute, you're telling me instead of retiring at 60, now you want me to work at 65 so you can send the money to Greece so they can retire in 47? Are you crazy? They're saying, you can't do that to me. So they go to the EU and they say, EU, we can't send this money to Greece. Greece, you have to get your budget in line. You have to balance your budget. So Greece goes to the people and says, you know what? We said you were going to be able to retire at 47, but it's not true anymore. We said we were going to give you this much for a pension, but it's not true anymore. We're going to give you less. What are they doing in Greece? They're rioting in the streets. Go to France, Paris, one of my favorite cities in the whole world. You can't even go there anymore because it's always on strike. The garbage is on strike. The airport's on strike. The health work is on par. The immigration is on strike. It's crazy because basically what happened in France is what you're going to see happening everywhere in the EU. They told the people, there was a government, and they said, listen, here's the truth. The truth is, in the past, the government promised you this money, they promised you this retirement, but the money is gone, and you're not going to get it. So that's the truth. And the workers say, oh yeah? If you don't give us that money, we're going to go on strike. So they do. They go on strike. And the government says, you can go on strike all you want. We don't have the money. It's gone. The United States has a $16 trillion deficit. Trillion with a T. $16 trillion deficit. You have these economy theorists, economists. They say, well, the deficit doesn't matter. If it's a certain percentage of gross national product, it's okay. But it's not okay. Because you can't give out more than you take in. They seem to have this theory that governments are immune from the universal laws of prosperity. But governments are no different than anyone else. The universal laws of prosperity apply. Here was the chapter here's the title I gave this chapter in the book. The title is, "The Only Free Cheese is in the Mousetrap." The only free cheese is in the mousetrap. And see, you could take all of my whole philosophy on success and prosperity, and you could crystallize it and define it by that one sentence. The only free cheese is in the mousetrap. Because all true prosperity is a value for value exchange. When you produce value, you get back in value. And governments are no different than anyone else. So let me tell you, now it's funny, I wrote a blog about 6-7 months ago, and I predicted that the euro would collapse in 2 to 3 years. And when I wrote that blog, people thought I was crazy. Now, you know where I've been the last month? I was afraid the euro was going to collapse before my book came out. All right, it's so apparent. So what's going to happen when the euro collapses? Believe me when I tell you it will affect your currency in Turkey. Believe me when I tell you it'll affect the dollar, the pound, the yen, the peso. It'll affect every currency on earth. It'll affect gold and platinum and silver. So see, when somebody goes down over here, somebody will go up over here. So when the euro collapses, gold will get higher and higher and higher. And there will be people who lose a fortune when the euro collapses, and there will be people who make a fortune when gold goes up. But then when people start mining asteroids, and it becomes cheaper to bring gold back to Earth than it is to dig it up out of the earth, the price of gold will go down. And there will be people who lose fortunes overnight, and there will be people who make fortunes overnight. I don't know if this is going to translate or not, but here's what I say in the book. When everybody is zigging, you got to be zagging. Meaning just when everybody's going this way, you got to be going that way. Because that's where the fortunes are created. So, where does this all bring us? Millions of jobs are going to be eliminated by technology. Millions of jobs are going to need complete retraining because of technology. Millions of other people are going to lose their jobs because their governments are bankrupt. and the bill will eventually come due, and that will amount in massive layoffs of hundreds of thousands of people at a time by governments all over the world, which will have a waterfall effect on companies all over the world, which rely on government as their client, as for their business, and we will lose millions more jobs because of the economic malfeasance practiced by many of the countries around the world today. So there will be people who will think that is the darkest time in our lifetime. I submit it'll be the greatest time of our lifetime. Because if millions of people lose their jobs by technology, if millions of people are faced with the reality that they're going to need complete retraining to keep their job, if millions more people are going to lose their job because of their governments, here's what I predict. Millions and millions and millions of them will enter the profession of network marketing. You will see such an increase in people becoming self-employed, such an increase in home-based businesses, such a increase in direct selling businesses, and such an increase in network marketing home-based businesses. I predict in the book that we are about to enter the golden era of network marketing. That 40 years from now, 30 years from now, we will look back and say, 2013, 2014, 2015, that was the golden era of network marketing. Because we will be entering a space that sometimes, there will be some months during this period where literally millions of new people will be joining network marketing in a month. Literally millions in a month. New people who have never been involved in the business before will be joining the business. That's why, you know, in every company in the business, we all have those charts, right, that show exponential growth, right? You've all seen those charts, right? We say you have the foundational time, and then you get to this tipping point, and then you go almost vertical with this exponential growth curve, and then you level off and you reach the maturity stage. Here's what I predict. I predict the entire profession of network marketing is going to reach that exponential growth curve. And we will bring millions and millions of new people into the profession over the next 5 to 10 years. You see why I'm excited right now about these changes? See why I say in the most difficult times, the most uncertain economic times, those are the times of greatest growth for our profession, and we are about to enter it. The golden era of network marketing. So here's what I want you to know. It's why I wrote the book. It's why I wanted to talk to you about this subject today. We live in the greatest time in human history. For most of you in this convention hall, most of you here, in your lifetime, you will be able to take a vacation on the moon. Most of you in this convention hall, in your lifetime, you will have the opportunity to buy a home on the floor of the ocean with a coral reef view and sharks and whales swimming by your living room. Most of you in this room will be able to score the winning goal for the football team for your country in the World Cup. But this last one will probably be done during virtual reality in a holosuite somewhere. Now understand, I'm not talking about 50 years from now. I'm not talking about 100 years from now. Richard Branson is going to be taking tourists into space next year. There's a hotel in the South Pacific right now that has a big biosphere room which they can take you down to the floor of the ocean and you spend 2 days there, which is the most you can spend right now because of the pressure. It's like scuba diving and they haven't figured that out yet, but it's already for 2 days. Okay, virtual reality is processing so fast, it's mind-boggling. We're talking, these kind of changes I'm talking about are going to be happening in the next decade. So I'm telling you today, we live in the greatest time of human history. There has never been a better time to be alive. Really, if you could be in that DeLorean and pick a date, this is the day you would pick right now. There has never been a better time to go from broke to multi-millionaire than right now. Because of mobile apps, because of the internet, because of the cloud, because of social media, because of technology, because of biogenetic engineering, all of these changes making this the greatest time to ever be alive, the greatest time ever to create wealth. But millions of people don't know it yet. They think we live in the darkest time of human history because they read the newspapers. They're watching the nightly news. They're hearing the unemployment figures. They're hearing about the factories closing, the businesses shutting down. They only see the challenges. I see the opportunities. You see the opportunities. You wouldn't be in this convention hall today if you weren't the kind of person who recognizes opportunities. So your job, your mission going forward is to go out and spread the word on. Your mission is to go out and do what you're capable of doing. Recognize these opportunities that you have right now, that we really do, and spread the word to this people and step into your greatness. I love this country. I love this part of the world. I love this business. I know the potential of the people in this room. My heart has been touched with the love that I have received from everyone in Turkey for months, for 2 months leading up to this. And I love this, you know, it's one of the magical cities. Istanbul is one of the magical cities in the world anyway. And I know we have people here from Malaysia and Germany and Iran and other countries as well. I'm telling you, the things that I'm talking about, these aren't restricted to one little part of the world. These are global trends that will impact every human being on earth. And while other people will choose to see the challenges, you're here in this room because you see the opportunities. And I came here today to tell you, seize those opportunities. You really do live in the greatest time in human history because risky is the new safe. Peace. I love you guys. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you all.